Before we dive into this heartbreaking story, do me one quick favor. If you believe in justice, if you believe in standing up for victims who no longer have a voice, then hit that like button to boost this story. Subscribe to the channel, where we break down real-life crimes, court cases, and cautionary stories that could save your life or someone else's. And if you ever see red flags in a relationship, trust your gut. Let's get into the case of Margaret Mbitu and the man who tried to run from justice. She told her family she was heading home from work. She never made it. Days later, her body was found, hidden inside a car at Logan Airport. The man she loved vanished. Margaret Mbitu was just 31, a Kenyan-born nurse living in the U.S. She was known for her big heart, her warm smile, and her deep dedication to caring for others. She worked in a behavioral health center in Massachusetts, helping people heal. But behind her beautiful spirit was a hidden pain. Margaret had been in an on-and-off relationship with 42-year-old Kevin, another Kenyan immigrant living in the U.S. Her friends say the relationship had red flags. Kevin was possessive, he was older, and he didn't take no very well. On October 30, 2023, Margaret left work as usual, but she didn't come home. Her family began to worry. Calls went unanswered. Texts were left unread. They reported her missing. 2 days later, at Boston Logan International Airport, police officers found a black SUV parked oddly in the garage. Inside was a nightmare. Margaret's lifeless body. She had been stabbed multiple times, her throat slashed. She'd been dead for days. The vehicle? It was registered to Kevin. And Kevin? He was already on a flight to Kenya, leaving the country after a crime like this. It's called flight to avoid prosecution. U.S. law treats it very seriously. Kevin is charged with first-degree murder, which means the killing was intentional and planned. In the U.S., if you kill someone and then try to escape justice, it makes your case worse. It shows what lawyers call consciousness of guilt, a fancy way of saying you knew what you did was wrong, so you ran. Now the U.S. has to extradite Kevin from Kenya, meaning they must work with the Kenyan government to send him back to face trial. He thought he could hide in his motherland. But justice was hot on his trail, and the moment he stepped into a Nairobi nightclub, the net closed in. Back in Kenya, Kevin was laying low. For weeks there was no public trace of him, but the international manhunt didn't stop. Kenyan and American authorities were already coordinating. On January 30th, 2024, nearly 3 months after Margaret's murder, Kevin was spotted in a Nairobi nightclub. Sources say he was partying, acting normal, and moving like a free man. But he wasn't free for long. Detectives stormed the club and arrested him. It was a chaotic scene. Kevin was dragged out in front of cameras, and soon the news exploded across Kenya and the diaspora. Mbitu murder suspect caught. But then, something wild happened. While being held at the Muthaiga police station, Kevin escaped. Yes, escaped. Reports say he was aided by rogue officers. The escape embarrassed the police force and shocked the public. A fugitive accused of murder simply walked away. It took days of searching, public outrage, and pressure from both governments before Kevin was recaptured and placed under tight guard. Kenyan police suspended officers involved and promised a full investigation. Kevin's escape raises serious legal issues. First, prison escape is a crime in itself, and if police helped him, that's called aiding and abetting a fugitive. Also, this affects the extradition process. For someone to be sent from Kenya to the U.S., the local courts must be confident that their rights will be respected and that the crime is serious. Since the U.S. and Kenya don't have a formal extradition treaty, the process becomes political and complex. But because the murder was so brutal, and because both countries have mutual respect, Kevin's extradition was approved. Now, he's heading back to Boston to face trial. She can't speak anymore, but the court will speak for her. Now, all eyes are on the trial and what justice really means when someone kills, runs, and lies. As of 2025, Kevin is in U.S. custody. He's facing the highest charge possible: first-degree murder. Margaret's family, her community, and activists around the world are watching. They're not just hoping for justice for Margaret, they want this to be a wake-up call. Margaret died in the hands of someone she trusted, someone she may have loved. And now, the trial will ask one big question. Why? The prosecution will try to prove that Kevin planned this, that the murder was deliberate, not a crime of passion, but a cold, calculated killing. The defense might argue mental health, provocation, or lack of intent. But with the evidence, the car, the flight, the escape, Kevin's actions may speak louder than his words. Margaret's story is painful, but it's also powerful. It reminds us that domestic violence doesn't always leave bruises until it's too late. She was a nurse, a daughter, a Kenyan-American woman with dreams, and now her name is a call for justice. In the U.S., first-degree murder means the person planned the killing in advance. If Kevin is found guilty, he could face life in prison without parole. The trial will involve evidence from both countries, forensic reports, flight records, witness statements, and expert testimonies. The court must decide beyond a reasonable doubt that Kevin did it, and meant to do it. And this case is a big deal, because it shows how international justice can work when countries cooperate. It also puts pressure on both Kenya and the U.S. to take domestic violence more seriously. Margaret Mbitu deserved love, not violence. She deserved to live, not be remembered for how she died. Let this case remind us, when red flags fly, don't ignore them. And when justice is delayed, it must never be denied.